Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Nick Bour, who's the founder and CEO of Inspire Wealth. Nick, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you because I know we want to talk about, I love when people, you do the work that you do, and then you start noticing things throughout, and then you either write a book or come up with your proprietary process. And I know that you talk about and have developed your wealth management formula that's proprietary to what you serve your clients with. So let's jump into, some of the ways that you started noticing in the way that you deliver value to your clients. What was it that you started noticing that was really delivering super value to them? And then how did that come up for the wealth management formula?
I think a couple things. Number one, I think having the full service financial planning approach is so crucial in today's environment and today's world because of tax planning, because of legacy planning, because of institutional or investment management or tactical investment management. So when it comes to our wealth management formula and why it's such a differentiator in our mind is that our wealth management formula, advanced planning is a piece of that. Investment consulting, which is what most clients know, is the investment management piece of the assets. We also have relationship management as an important piece of our wealth management formula, and that's one that's always forgotten because it's not just having a relationship with the client. It's also, if you have a tax planning concern, we need to loop in your CPA. We need to make sure that the CPA and our team are on the same page. If we are worried about legacy planning, have you done your trust yet? Do you have things in place to make sure that your legacy is going to be set up from an asset perspective the way you want it? Well, if you don't, then we need to bring someone that we work with in our team as an estate attorney to make sure that the legal side and all the documents are set up properly. So it's really important as the relationship management goes to make sure that we have ongoing conversations and involvement with clients as professional advisors in addition to us.
Yeah, rather than just, order taker. Oh, you need, insurance, check. You need, an IRA, check. You mentioned advanced planning as a thing, and then how does that relate to relationship planning and legacy planning? Is that all kind of the same term, or do they play well together that way? But I was just curious about the phrase advanced planning.
So advanced planning to us breaks down into four categories. Number one is wealth enhancement, which is trying to mitigate taxes. Trying to reduce taxes on several levels. It could be trying to reduce taxes from a capital gain situation. How do we unwind a big unrealized gain when it comes to stocks or real estate? Looking at how do we reduce income taxes if you've done a really good job saving, but the majority of your assets are in your 401k or IRAs, and they're all taxable when they come out? How do we create strategies specific for you that's going to help you reach your goals? That's part of it. And then also the end of it is the estate planning or the legacy piece, making sure if you do have a potential estate tax issue, how can we reduce that? So that's all under wealth enhancement. And then we've got wealth transfer, and that ties into the estate planning piece as well. So the overall advanced planning is wealth enhancement, wealth transfer, wealth protection, and charitable planning. So those are the four topics.
Yeah, and that goes way beyond just the typical when people hear, oh, I worked at a company, I have a 401k, I should roll it over into something. Nick, can you help? Well, that's that's basic. Well, when you think advanced, that's what you just covered there. That's a big piece. So who, when you guys at Inspire Wealth are working with clients, who is typically the type of client that you're providing the highest value to, that you work with?
So there's several different professionals. Professionals is definitely I guess the high level person. So whether you're an attorney, whether you're a engineer, we do a lot in the medical industry. So we work with nurses, we work with physician's assistants, physical therapists, chiropractors. We've done a lot of work with them over the years, and they've got their own areas of concern, all of them, but overall professionals that have done a good job saving, that have made a good income, and now they really need a team that can kind of pull everything together.
Yeah.
Mike, we say it all the time. When you're talking about saving money and accumulating your wealth while you're working, whether it's within your retirement plan or outside of it, you're really in that first half of the game, or that first half of life. And really, you're not focused on income from your assets. You're really just focused on, how do I grow, and how do I grow my wealth as much as I can? When we start working with a lot of our clients, we're really trying to pull it all together. So, as I said, whether it's a professional, whether it's the medical field, whether you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, it doesn't matter. What matters is you've done well in your career, and now you're starting to think about transitioning out of your career and into that retirement. And whatever that retirement looks like, because for some, it's, well, you know what, I still am going to work part-time, or I'm still, maybe you're going to start a business. If you don't own a business now, maybe you want to start one that gives you flexibility to retire from your full-time career, but you're going to do it on your own pace. You're going to do it at your own desires. And that's, Mike, I think that's the most important phrase that we ask our clients. What is your retirement vision?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Well, what
retirement is changing.
Oh, my word, yeah. I mean, you hear about, back in the day, you work for a company 30 years, get the gold watch, retire, and then now you're sitting around playing whatever. And these days, in the last few decades, these days people are doing exactly what you said. They're like, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to start that business but if they started it 15 years before retirement, the pressure's on, because they got their mortgage, their college tuition for their kids, their expenses, and it's a whole different ballgame than when you're doing it pre-retirement planning, going, you know what? I've done a good job accumulating. Now I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to set my own schedule, be flexible, and I'm going to have the benefit of running whatever this business in this industry is, but I don't feel the pressure of, I've got to scale up and grow just to pay the bills. That's a big position to be in.
Correct. And it looks different for everyone. I'll give you a couple examples right now. I've got one client that recently retired as a manager from a municipality that she spent several years at, and she retired in her very early 60s, and now she's self-employed. She started her own business, and that was something she always wanted to do. I've got another client right now that's been an executive for a tier 1 auto supplier, and he just didn't want to deal with the day-to-day stress anymore. Yeah. But his company values him so much, they're literally carving out a role for him to continue to consult so many hours a month, and he's going to be making probably about 30 to 40% of what his salary was. And he never thought that was even an option. And when we had our conversation about retirement planning, when it was really getting close, I looked at him and I said, well, did you think about this, or have you approached them about that? Because you told me they don't want to lose you. Yeah. And when he came back to me and said, Nick, I'm floored. They're going to pay him like $50,000 a year to just work so many hours a month. The stress is gone. The travel is gone. All of that's gone.
So let's think about that one example right there. He never thought about that. he needed that outside perspective for you to say, you know what, you ought to try this. And probably if you were to, sketch out or illustrate out his day or week, he's now eliminated all of the fluff, meetings that were meaningless or this or that task that other people could have done. And he's only doing the things that he really is excellent at and enjoys doing. And he's getting paid some money that he probably was ready to retire anyway. So whatever the amount of money he's getting is like, wow, it's even more impactful than ever because I'm doing exactly and only what I love.
And that you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Not only is he only doing what he's really good at and what he really likes to do, but he got rid of all the fluff and all the stuff he really didn't like to do and all the responsibility. And now he took a step back when he found this out. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I said, not only do you not have to pull as much and put as much pressure on your portfolio as we originally were thinking we had to, he also has an additional cash flow on top of that that is like part of their leisure and travel money.
Yes.
And he did not expect that. So he is absolutely thrilled with this, and he actually ended up delaying his initial thought of the kind of full retirement a few months. Because he said, well, now that I'm gonna stay on as a consultant part-time, I might as well stay on a few more months. And that was kind of what they worked out. I mean, they even worked out some other things as far as his wife's and his health insurance. So he doesn't even have to go on Medicare. They're keeping him on the health insurance for the remainder of the year.
And, not to get into the weeds of planning, but see, this is that question I asked you a minute ago about advanced planning. This is way more than just a client coming to you saying, I'm getting ready to retire. Tell me how to roll over. This gets into, well, okay, let's do this. But have you thought about, have you considered? And again, I don't want to get into Social Security elections and planning,
right.
But that topic right there for your client that we're talking about, there would be many now different decisions that can be delayed or changed because of this scenario where he's like, you know what? I was going to retire because I'm done with it, but now I can stick it out a few more years. And now look at my quality of life. Look at my mental outlook on my career because now I'm consultant. And so now I can put off Social Security, maybe, get into that higher level. And that gets into that holistic, advanced, full, 30,000-foot view of retirement planning. I think that's a huge piece that you guys are providing your clients.
There's no question about it. And that's a big part of how we say we differentiate ourselves from other firms, because I've been in the industry for north of 20 years now, and there's a lot of firms out there that position themselves as financial planning firms. And that term gets thrown around a lot, like financial planner. Yeah. Well, okay, what are you doing? And I've seen so many clients come in that say, hey, I work with a financial planner. Okay, well then what you got to have one area or two areas of concern to make you want to come in to get either a second opinion or to get some outside input or advice. I just had another potential client come to me recently that wanted a second opinion. And it was like, 15, 20 minutes into the conversation of like, okay, is there anything in particular that you're concerned about, or what kind of made you take that step to get that second opinion?
Yeah.
And the reasoning was, our current financial planner is in our mind using the typical asset allocation investment strategies. Meaning, yeah, they're doing stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and that's really it. And that was the wife actually making that comment to me, saying, that's not asset diversification, or that's not investment diversification. And she actually came right out and asked me, like, what is diversification to you and your firm?
Wow.
And it was, it's not just stocks and bonds. It's, how do you make sure that you're looking at all these things we've already talked about, from taxes to transitioning your wealth, to making sure you have some protections in place on some of your assets, whether it's using strategies like structured products. Most people don't even know what that means, and that's where we can have some downside protection on the overall S&P or on the NASDAQ or on the Dow Jones, and so you can have that investment growth potential still, but you can have some downside protection. The other thing is alternatives are becoming more and more important, whether it's precious metals, whether it's energy, whether it's real estate. I mean, some of the strategies that we utilize can help balance out the portfolio even more than they ever have. Now, we all know a lot of investments that we're looking at has some level of risk, no matter what you're doing. But when you can blend what we call non-correlated assets, meaning they don't move or they don't have the same volatility as the traditional stock market, that could help balance out your risk in your portfolio in the event we do have another major market change.
I'm glad you didn't mention, not that you would have, but the example about the second opinion and the other advisor that they came from. So I can make this comment without, putting a negative light on this other firm, because we don't know who this other firm is. But
correct.
Observing what you just said, if this firm used a cookie cutter templated approach and the client, the wife, recognized, it's kind of vanilla. Nick, give us a second opinion. What do you think about this diversification? And you look at it and say, it's pretty basic, nothing horribly wrong with it, but have you considered it? Have you looked at? And I mean, I love the non-correlated assets. That's kind of, tell me more about that, because if I can help balance out or mitigate some risk, I'm interested. And so what that tells me is you have firm A that is just not real. They've got 10 years of experience, they've got 1 year of experience 10 times over. And someone like yourself has 20 years of experience where you're learning and growing and staying sharp and staying cutting edge, going, ooh, we should consider. And some of the things that you may have recommended to them, you may not get a dime for, as opposed to someone else that's like, ooh, let's go stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And then now that is benefiting one party over the other. So I really like that example there of that second opinion. That really does set yourself apart in that one way.
Well, and Mike, I'll definitely talk further on that. You just mentioned, you're staying up to date, you're learning, you're continuing to kind of hone your craft per se. Look, I'll be the first to say I'm always learning. I learn every day. But I think in today's world, firms that are not using cutting edge, up-to-date strategies when it comes to tax planning, when it comes to investment management, I think they're going to find themselves in the near future starting to fade out and fade away with some of their clients. And this is a perfect example, because the volatility we have seen in the market so far this year and some of the changes with the current economic climate, it's just, you have to be up to date when it comes to the asset management and the tax strategy piece. Yeah. And the asset management, I still, when I ask a new client or a potential client, do you know what the difference between retail investing and institutional investing? And they say, no, I don't know what that is. That in turn, right away, puts me at the point of saying, well, that tells me that whoever they're working with, no matter who the firm is, they're not really educating. They're not having those conversations. And that is also a big piece that our firm really focuses on: education and making sure that our clients feel like they can make well-informed decisions and that they're comfortable when we make recommendations on their planning and on their investments. It takes that relationship to a whole nother level. And that's really that's why I created Inspire Wealth, is because I wanted to create that different client experience. Relationships are always extremely important, which is why in our wealth management formula, relationship management, it's such a crucial piece. And I think that a lot of clients are starting to realize more and more as they do approach retirement that this is not just oh, well, I've got some stocks and bonds. It's extremely common for a professional to walk in and say, hey, I've got $1 million, or hey, I've got $2 million in my savings or assets. And they're like, you know what, we're in pretty good shape. And we actually will bring our team together. We will go through a complete financial plan. We will overlook everything based on goals, based on how their assets are set up currently, meaning pre-tax, after-tax, Roth, how much is in each, because a lot of our people coming in and a lot of our existing clients are concerned about future taxes and how could that impact your retirement. Yep. And once we actually go through all of this with a new client, even that client that has that $1 million or $2 million, and they're like, you know, we're looking for about $100,000 a year or maybe $80,000 a year between Social Security and our assets. And you have that in-depth conversation around some of the advanced planning pieces that I mentioned, and all of a sudden the client starts taking a step back and saying, well, maybe I'm not as in good a shape as I thought. You know, I have enough money, but it's all about working with the right team to make sure that we have the right people in the right seats, that we're going to be able to add the value for that client to make sure they can have that confident, comfortable retirement, whatever that looks like for them.
And, you know, one thing that I'll kind of wrap this up with when you say the right team, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the team you're talking about are people other than yourself, and also it could and should include people that are on your client's team currently. So in other words, this is not Nick Bour and his Inspire Wealth team and it's brand new, installed for the client. No, the client may already have an attorney, an estate planning attorney, a CPA. You're just bringing them all together to get them all on the same page, and everyone now is walking in lockstep. And that's a really great thing. The clients don't have to feel like, oh, well, now I got to, you know, move away from my guy or gal because Nick's brought his team in. Well, who do you work with now? Let's you know, lock arms together and make you successful, Mr. or Ms. Client.
That's exactly correct, Mike. And that's exactly why when we're talking about tax planning, sometimes one of the first things, you know, when I ask, hey, do you have a CPA or do you have an attorney, I kind of get the kind of weird look on the face, like, well, why do you want to talk to them, or why do you want to? Why is it important? And I'll kind of take a step back for a minute, and I'll look at them and I'll say, okay, let's think about this. We're not just talking about investments here. We're talking about tax strategies. How can I create a tax strategy or a personalized tax blueprint for you and your family if I'm not having a conversation with your CPA to make sure that our team and that CPA are on the same page?
Yes.
And that's such an important piece. So no, I agree with you. It's going to include sometimes part of their existing team. It's also going to include people that, what I will say, are in my network or in my center of influence circle that aren't technically affiliated or don't work exactly with Inspire Wealth. And the reason why that is and why that's so important is because I build relationships over 2 decades. Yeah. When I have a client that comes in or a potential client and I see they need something or they have a situation, where I don't specifically do that. Do I want my client to have to go out and search for that expertise in that area that they need? Absolutely not. And that's where, when I portray that team environment, when I portray that, listen, we have the right people in the right seats. And you know what? Are there times where I may not have that specific person that you need? Of course there are. But I also have enough people that I know and that I trust that I can also go a step further and say, you know what? I don't know this person. Let me reach out to my team, and I'll reach out to my 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 key people that could have a connection with that person that they need.
Yes.
And that's so important because it allows the client to feel like we are truly that quarterback. Yep. And we are truly the leader of that team to make sure that we are looking at every possible angle to make sure we're maximizing your goals and what you've worked so long and hard to save for your retirement and for your legacy and for your family.
100%. Well, you know, in that last phrase you just said, your legacy, your family, it's not Nick's back pocket, Nick's firm. It's not Aspire Wealth. It's what Nick and Aspire Wealth does for you. And I think that you just said that without thinking about it, but I'm observing how you phrased that. And that just illustrates 100% and stamps your approach on how you create those relationships. So I love your approach there, Nick, and it's been really a pleasure talking through these things. If someone is listening to this going, you know what, I kind of want that second opinion Nick talked about, what's the best way that someone can reach out and connect with you and learn more?
The best way is probably our website, inspireyourretirement.com. We have links to my calendar and my team's calendar, so that's probably the best way. And it can be as simple, Mike, as an initial 15-minute conversation over the phone.
Nick.
Just, hey, this is what we do more. Tell me about what your situation is and what you're concerned about. Like you said, it could be as simple, can I get a second opinion? Sure, absolutely. That's what we're here for. We want to be a resource. We want to educate the community.
Love it. Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate you coming on today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
You too, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity to come on as well.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.